Hello everyone, this is the part 2 of Composites and bringing together two or more images into a single image to make what we call a photo illustration. We're going to talk about how to amend an existing mask. Again, I do stress the point that having your mask as tight as possible, the first mask as tight as possible, will help you subsequently with the following mask or any further use of the mask. So here's where we left off. And you can see where I just need to adjust this mask a little bit. I enlarge my mask panel over here just so you can kind of see live what happens. And there's a couple ways to do this. I think at this point I would probably show you the quick and easy way to kind of get the larger picture, which is very similar to what we were doing before. So for instance, if I were to take my poly lasso tool again, this will depend on the black and white swatches here at the bottom of the toolbar. You want to make sure that they're black and white because the black and white corresponds with the mask itself on the layer mask. Now you can swap them back and forth depending which way you need it, but in this case I need the background to be removed, which is going to be the sky part here, so I can make sure that the black is in the back of the layer order, and I can simply come in here and just draw lasso lines, poly lasso lines again, here and in here. I'm just going to do a little chop job real quick. I'm not going to go around that curve real quick, but I am going to intentionally miss this building a little bit and get a little sloppy there for the next part of this. And again, I want to loop around to where close to the starting point, and double click. And now I have that selection again. And instead of hitting the layer mask button, because it just adds another layer to it, I'm going to actually just simply I wouldn't say cut. Well, I'm going to cut it, but I don't like to use the word cut or just delete it. You just simply hit the delete key. Now you can see the more of the replacement sky is now being revealed. One step I want to go back, which I always kind of forget every now and then, is just to add a little feather. When you cut something, even with a straight line, if you cut a straight line with it, or a mask with a straight line, it's a hard line. So I just want to feather a little bit so it kind of blends in a little bit. And usually 1 pixel will work with hard edges. I usually go a little bit more when it's a soft edge. And I'm just going to delete that. And if you watch there, the mask, I will go back and forth. You see the mask, how it expanded, what it was before, and what it is now. I could work my way around to all of this and just keep going, adding to this. Maybe I'll just do another selection over here. So there's about 5 ways to do everything in Photoshop. That's the great advances of this technology. I'm showing you one method. This is the method I, was adopting because of the fact it was, it seemed a little bit more obsessive compulsive, I guess. But it suits my work pattern and how I kind of work on images. Now you can see my mask is growing a little bit further. Maybe I'll just do one. Well, I'll actually come back over here. There's another way to work with mask or with the selection process, is sometimes some artists and designers will actually put a background that's clear and then you just add on and paint to it, which is similar to what we're this other method here. But I can come in here with the brush tool or the erase tool. If I come in with the erase tool and again make sure that the mask layer is selected, I could just literally just erase it, and it's technically not erasing, it's just drawing on the mask. You can see that the mask is starting to evolve here on the mask layer. If I were to make a big circle here, then I'm masking out parts of the building, but you see it corresponds to the mask layer. I want to do that one there. There are a number of imaging artist I know who does this, where they just kind of erase the mask away. I find this a little bit more tedious because you can easily make an error and just kind of go into the building a little bit, and that's fine. But what you do is, if you do erase part of the part that you don't want, but if you undo it, it goes back to what you where it was, and that's a lot to kind of cover the ground again. So sometimes what people will do is kind of come in, and then you can flip the foreground background. So I want to flip the foreground background, so now that I'm actually adding white to the mask, and I can put it back in here if I needed to. Again, with the brush tool, you can always change the size of the brush if you want a bigger brush. You can also change the hardness, which is what the brush is known as for. It's the same as feathering, except that you can make it really large or small depending on how what you're looking at. So you can make a really hard edge or soft edge. But I want to show you a different way of doing this that may be a little bit more effective. I want to show you this part here. You can see here on the original mask that I kind of missed, and I did this intentionally in order to kind of show this demo here. One thing you could do is pull out your channels panel or channels window. This is another way of looking at your mask, and I have it right down here. And I can actually activate it, and this technically shows you your mask. So the red parts are what is the corresponding to the black part on the layer mask. The reason I like to do this from time to time is because I get a separation between the building and the mask. And if you looked at it before, you can see that there's just a faint blue line there, which is gives me that telltale sign that something's been photoshopped on here. And I would probably come in here with maybe a 90% feather or hardness on the brush, and a small brush. Maybe that's a little too small, 1 pixel is too small, but maybe 3. I'll probably tilt my brush this way, which is a nice thing about it. You can actually line up the brush to the angle of the line that you're following, and then I'm going to turn it to an elliptical, so that way I can kind of see it kind of matches up there. Turn it just a little hair more. And again, the brush tool or the erase tool will work with this. I want to use the brush tool because I like using a brush rather than an erase, but because sometimes I'm actually adding, I'm not necessarily erasing something. Here we go. Again, this depends on your foreground background. So I need to add a mask to this. So I'm going to flip it to the back, and then whoops, other way. Simply, if you test it out, you can see that it's going the wrong direction. Is it going the right direction? Yeah, I need to go that direction. So I need to put the foreground or the black on the foreground. So I'm painting on the mask, and I'm just going to tab it there, maybe a little bit, get a little pixel level here. And I can actually just kind of tap that in there, but I want to show you a trick. I want to lay down one line. I want to show it to you over here so you can see what I'm doing. I want to click once, and then if I go down here and just follow the line, oops, I want to click here, and if I just go down here, follow the line, and hold down the Shift key, it will draw a straight line from the beginning point to where you designate the end point. So I'm going to do that over here to this edge of the building here. I want to put it right there, crosshairs right on the corner, and then there's that one click, the starting click, and I want to come down here and finish the ending click right about here and hold down the Shift key, and it adds that line for me. I kind of went over the edge a little bit, I think, but let's find out. Oops. So you can see it's a little cleaner than it was before. Let's go look at our histogram, or history channel, or history panel. And there's before, and then there's the after. I left a little bit of a ghosting here, so that brush wasn't really that big right here. Let me go back over here. And for Photoshop, it becomes all about the details. I just kind of cleaned that up a little bit. And then back over here, you see that the mask goes over into the building, and I can simply flip the foreground background, and now I'm going to just kind of slowly take away the mask. Maybe I just come up a little bit more. That's a little too much. Now, there are a number of Photoshop artists like to use the mask tool all the time. I like to use a combination of both. I like to use the selection tool for the big picture, and then use the mask or use the channels for the smaller detail things I need to work on. And I can already bring that back out. Tapping the X key will switch between your foreground background. It's a little trick there for you. And again, cellular level or pixel level gets you in there close, so you can see where the difference is between the building and the sky. There we go. And you just keep working your way around. So it's a very arduous task, but for Photoshop retouchers, the art is making things look like nothing's ever has been photoshopped. In this example, we would if we were to take this to the next level, we would try to match the reflections of the clouds in the buildings. But in this case, we're just going to leave it as it is. You can see how Photoshop can get very deep, because ultimately this building here would probably be reflecting parts of the clouds that are over here. And that's the major building right there that we'd see. That's more in advanced Photoshop. The idea of this project is to make sure that we get our use of our mask. We use our softening of our edges. And again, you can have over here on your feathering, you can increase that feather a little bit. I'm just going to increase it drastically so you can see how it kind of creates that glow. See around the edges of the buildings. Again, that's the telltale sign of Photoshop has been overused. So you want to make it look just kind of realistic in there, and it just gives that little softness to it. Let's zoom in a little bit. So there's a hard edge. You can see that hard line right there. And again, this is the part that I missed a little bit. And you can see the difference between this blue sky here and then here on the building. But you can feather a little bit. It hides it a little bit. But if you increase the feather too much, then you get that glow. So I'm probably going to leave it about 1.5 pixel feather right there. There are times in Photoshop where you need a hard edge on one part of the image, and then you need a soft edge on a different part of the image. This is the part where the mask comes into play, because I wanted to kind of show you here. So you see that there's the slight 1 and the 1.3 pixel there. I can change that if I want to. So you can see that it just takes that edge off a little bit. So there are times when you need a feather which is very drastic on one part of the image and then very solid on another part of the mask. The way you would do that is to come in through channels. So you already have a 1.3 pixel feather around the entire edge, but I can come in here and say I want to just do this for dramatics, and I'm going to crank down the hardness down to about 10, so you can see the edge, how the edges works. Whoops, too big. So you can see the edge of this, if you examine it very closely, it's a little different than the other edges. Maybe I'll just turn down, leave them softer. Let me pull out the soft brushes. So you can see that the edge right there, right here, is a little softer than right here or right here. This part is where you can get really finessed and create a mask with hard edges and soft edges with a combination of either or. And it kind of, fades in a little bit. That's the complexity of having a layer mask, which we'll get more into in the future. But for this project, it's a lot of hard straight lines. Later projects will actually kind of mix up the mask a little bit. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.